It's about that time.
City Views, City Views.
What's happening in your city?
City Views, City Views. City Views, City Views.
You got love for your
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of City Views, brought to you by our sponsor, Toth Insurance Agency, located at 1151 East Main Street. Better protection, better value. We're so happy today to bring to you our most honorable mayor, Eleanor C. Carbone. Thank you so much, Mayor, for taking time out of your schedule to talk with our audience today.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. Happy 2021.
We are here.
Yeah.
And I must say, this Christmas season was definitely just a little bit better and a little bit brighter because of the decorations downtown and the completion of Franklin Plaza. So good job on that situation.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very pleased. So it's a great addition to the city. We're quite proud of that.
Indeed it is. Before we get started, Mayor, I know there's a few things that we want to cover in terms of some of the plans you have for 2021. But I think it's very timely today that we have the opportunity to speak with you because as many people are witnessing, there's some very serious negotiations going on in the country right now. And although we can't necessarily affect everything that goes on the national level, we can have a positive input on what goes on here in our local community. But I would like to know, Mayor, if you would be willing to address the issue of our elections here in the city of Torrington and assure our citizens that their voices were heard and that their votes were counted.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the opportunity to do so. Election 2020 was a very different kind of election for the municipality, the nation. In light of the pandemic, we really were tasked to make sure that we were getting, the greatest turnout in voter participation. That meant a full court press for absentee ballots. Making sure that people were safe at the balloting places and felt comfortable coming in. I can tell you that the city clerk's office and our registrar's office are both the lead agents on all of that. And they did an absolute phenomenal job. Of course, we always know that every time there's an election, the Secretary of State's office for the state of Connecticut does random audits to determine whether or not we were following all of the rules, counting every single vote, and making sure that access to the polling places was as easy as it can be under the circumstances. And I have every confidence that if the city of Torrington is elected to be a part of that audit, that they will find that that was truly the case. We're proud of what we do here on the local level. And I know all politics are local, but if there's any question about the validity or the safety of the voting this last cycle, I can assure everyone it was done well. And every vote was counted.
Mayor, can you help us try to put our hands around why our free, fair, and democratic elections were denigrated?
I wish I could, because our experience here has always been, so well run, so respected, that I don't know where any questions would come up. They certainly, I feel confident, could not come up on this local level. So wrapping my head around that, I can't answer that as to why that would be called into question. I think that every state has their process, every county has their process, and here in Connecticut, every city has its process. And we want to be able to trust that and have faith in it. I think our history certainly provides solid ground for everyone to be confident that it was done correctly. just as a concerned citizen, less as a mayor, I felt that this was something that we all own. We all want to see it done well, and we all want to be held accountable. So,
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I'm
absolutely.
sure our audience listeners do too. Now, how is the city budget going to be affected going forward by the pandemic?
Right now, the city budget is performing remarkably well under the circumstances, despite the fact that we've had to incur expenses with PPE, with any of the safety protocols, with plexiglass shields, with gloves, with masks, but also with overtime for our public safety sector. If anybody is out because a member of their family has been subjected to the virus, or they themselves have been, it creates a gap that needs to be filled. So overtime in our public safety sectors has been impacted. Those expenses are all being tracked separately outside of our regular operating budget. We have submitted to the FEMA and the state of Connecticut a request for reimbursement under the FEMA pool of money, but also under the COVID recovery fund that the state set aside. We recently learned that we were going to be reimbursed for the expenses that have been submitted, and additional funds against expended expenses that are anticipated to occur between now and December of 2021. So we're comfortable right now, as long as nothing else changes dramatically. But all of those things are being tracked, they're being measured, and more importantly, we're looking at those funds that were awarded to us for these purposes in a planful way to make sure that that we're putting in any of those measures that a municipality should be budgeting for to ensure continued safety and health protocols.
There are some good things going on in the city,
Yes.
and some things that you can hang your hat on and be very proud of.
Yes.
Would you mind talking to our audience a little bit about that, Mayor?
So I talked a little bit about the school construction project. I can say that the Board of Education and the building committee did an absolutely phenomenal job getting all of the information out to the voters. All along, my hope and my goal was that that the voters would have enough time to get all the information they needed to vote, that we would see a significant voter turnout so that there wasn't any question that it was passed or failed by a slim margin, and obviously that it passed, period. So I feel blessed to be in this position right now, to be able to work with the building committee and the Board of Education to just grease the wheels, help them keep this project moving forward, finding the resources before we're able to bond for construction so that they could do all the planning pieces of it, helping them identify how they're going to address the increased demands for traffic in that area. So that's one of the great things that we'll be working on over the next year or two. Some of the other things that we're still continuing to chip away at is road improvements. 3 years ago, the voters agreed that it was time for the city to invest in road work. And over the last 2 years, we just had a report. We've accomplished 14 miles of road work. And while that might not sound like a great number when you just say 14 is a number, but in context of how much road work needed to be done, that is a great deal of road work that has been accomplished in the last year under the bonded funds. The exciting work that's going to be happening, much of that road work is on the periphery. It's a little bit on the west end, it's a little bit on the east end, and only those neighborhoods really enjoy the benefit of that. But over the next year, we're going to see more focus in the downtown area, specifically Prospect Street, which desperately needs to be repaved, rebuilt. That will include more walkability. It'll include a stretch of bike route that makes it easier for anybody who may be coming off the Susan Grossman Greenway and trying to make their way downtown Torrington. Will have a dedicated bike route along that stretch of road. It's improvement on the sidewalks. And Prospect Street is one of those heavily trafficked areas that is part housing, it's part business, it's office space, and it's schools. So this is a stretch of road that I'm particularly excited to see us moving forward with. We are continuing to work with DOT to get the final plans approved for all of the sidewalk work that is supposed to occur between downtown Torrington and the New Hartford town line. We're close. In October, we had another conference call with DOT to figure out what are those last little bits of design that have them, reluctant to give us the green light to start the construction or send it out to bid. So we think we're closing in on that, and I'd like to see that project happen this year. And when we talk about walkability, it's sidewalks, it's bike routes, it's trails. So much trail work has happened in the city of Torrington in the last 5 years. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Rista Malanka, who was our zoning enforcement officer and is now our economic development director, has chased grants and worked with the Naugatuck River Greenway. She's actually on their committee to eke out any resources that she can find to continue to design the Naugatuck River Greenway and then find ways for us to incrementally implement that. So we want to fill in some of the gaps between the Susan Grossman Greenway, the Naugatuck River Greenway at Franklin Plaza, and then the rest of the Naugatuck River Greenway down in the south end and into Toro Field. And at Toro Field, we have our dog park.
I was just getting ready to ask you about that.
So excited about that. A piece of property that really became revealed when we did that trail work. And that's the other advantage of doing this work. You uncover a gem that's been sitting there dormant or unrealized until you do a little bit of work and realize that we can capitalize on this. So we're excited about that, and I want to see additional improvements. I'm working with an Eagle Scout who's undertaking some additional improvements to the park, engaging our youth in a way that they take ownership of some of these park developments. Also, it's been a very rewarding for me, and I see as being very fruitful for the city.
That's fantastic, and Mayor, I do want to commend you too. We had an opportunity to speak with Rufus Durham from the Warner Theater earlier this week, and he definitely praised you on your efforts in advocating for the arts in the Warner Theater and the Save Our Stages program. So I think the arts is taking on a bigger profile downtown and could be a major component in the economic vitality that hits our city, hopefully sooner than later.
I believe it's the arts that's going to lead us out of this pandemic, to be honest with you. Once we are able to bring back shows at the Warner Theater, Five Points Gallery has undertaken so much work, not only at their gallery, but at their Center for Visual Arts up at University Drive. Kids Play, the Nutmeg Conservatory. I do believe that it is going to be the arts that leads us through this and restore some of the confidence and goodwill and pride here in the city of Torrington. We have a lot of new residents, a lot of people that chose to escape the urban centers, New York City, New York, upper state New York, Massachusetts. They have been gravitating to the northwest corner and they've been landing in Torrington. So I'm excited to be able to introduce all of those art offerings to our new residents and look forward to working with Rufus and the Warner Board. Working with the Warner Theater, working with all of our arts organizations, Five Points Gallery, Kids Play, Nutmeg Conservatory. We have some other small, we've got Red Room, we have recording studios, we have John Nowelke, who's working on Howard's building. I'm looking forward to working with them. More importantly, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to introduce our new residents who have relocated to the city of Torrington, trying to escape those urban centers, to these arts organizations that exist here.
Well, Mayor, as we wrap up this interview, I personally would like to thank you for your leadership. I think it's been exceptional throughout the pandemic. You've kept us informed. You've kept our spirits up, and you've kept us safe. And I don't think our residents can thank you enough for your intelligence and your determination in making sure that you're fulfilling your role as mayor of the fine city of Torrington. So we thank you for that.
I thank you for saying that. And again, it's a team. There are people in this community that love this community as much as you and I do, that want to see us be the best of the best. And it has been a team effort. So including you as part of that media, that news media. So right back at you with the gratitude.
It's about that time.
Thank you, Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Mayor Eleanor C. Carbone, giving us and sharing with us her thoughts on several different issues. We want to encourage you to check this interview out on our YouTube channel at cityviews-ct, or go to our website at cityviews-ct.com.
Arts are an essential human right. I mean, this is the oldest form of community, is storytelling around the campfire, is song and music, and this is how we tell our stories and create empathy between us and pass on knowledge from generation to generation. I mean, it's fundamental to who we are as a species, and arguably a big part of the reason for our evolution. I mean, our brain's capacity to create is wholly unique. And especially with everything going on right now in the world, and the tumult and the just, it's just that doom scrolling. I mean, that's like really what it is. I mean, it's needed to bring communities together and try to find a place of healing. And for a place like Northwest Connecticut, which is rural, which never recovered fully from the last recession, this is a fabric that can bring all of us together and really push us forward as a region.
I agree wholeheartedly with you, Rufus. And your selection as the executive director of the Warner Theater came at a very auspicious time.
You can say that again.
when we first met you, and you had your first appearance on City Views, it was as the executive director for the Northwest Arts Council. And I think people recognized your significant input there, and definitely endorsed your appointment as the executive director to the Warner Theater. What experiences kind of laid the groundwork for you to make that transition so successfully?
I think it was just, I mean, the connections and the network and the support I got from the community, and just getting to know the leaders in the community and the artists and the other organization leaders, and building a cohort around a shared ideal that not only is arts key for the economic future of Northwest Connecticut, but it was key for the cultural and general well-being of Northwest Connecticut. And that's really what sort of helped my transition. And the other part of it was that Steph Burr, who's now the executive director, and Maddie Stenson, who both worked for us, or both worked for the Arts Council with me, were just primed to be the new leaders. I mean, they've taken any little bit of thing that I'd started there and just ran straight through to the the goalpost and knocked it out of the park. I mean, that's a lot of sports metaphors I just mixed there. I mean, they really stepped up during COVID, and I'm so grateful for their leadership in the region and what they've done. And they get it, and I think that's exactly what we need. I look at all of the young people at the 5 Points Center for Visual Arts and their launch pad. I look at people like the Boondocks Film Society who are just doing things, and even people like Rana, just putting music onto the streets in Torrington, and just like, it's this generation that we know there's problems and we know there's issues, but we're not going to sit around and complain about it. We're just going to be like, hey, here's the solution. We're going to do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we tried.
You can't do a Dr. King's presentation without having Dr. King's voice in the mix. And so Dr. King, we know, had a huge voice, standing up for those that didn't have the power, and just was a great leader, a great man of courage. And so we have two individuals coming from our past and our present. What I mean by that is our senior and our youth. When you combine wisdom with youth, you can make some changes. When you combine skill with creativity, you can make some changes. So we have one of our creative seniors that's going to come, along with one of our creative youth, that will share and remind us of the great speech, Dr. King's speech, I Have a Dream speech, which will be read by Faith Thomas and Brother Aganza and Wanda. Let's give them a big hand.
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check that has come back marked insufficiency funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come into this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. There is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of Negro legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hoped that the Negro needed to blow off steam will now be content, will have a rude awakening. If the nation returns to business as usual, there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation, and the bright day of justice emerges.
But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone.
And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the city. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi can vote and a Negro in New York City believes he has nothing to vote for. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful of some of what you have come here out of the great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where you quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that is suffering. Continue to work. The faith that is unearned suffering is redemptive.
Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Amen. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day, right here in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley will be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to in the South with the faith that we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With the faith that we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Yeah. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing, our country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's bride. From every mountain, let freedom reign. Let freedom reign.
And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvious slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee.
All right. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountaintop, let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we'll be able to speed up the day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty! We are free at last. We are free at last. We are so grateful to be able to be up here. I'm reminded of the words of Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? We are still working on the dream. We are still in the dream. Some of us have been struggling since the 60s, but it's all right because we don't give up hope. Because Martin Luther King said, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty for free at last. And we're free. And my hope is in the young. When I see young women like this get up and begin to speak and know truth, I know that the cause is not lost. We are not lost. We are here and we're celebrating and we continue to celebrate our freedom. And we know it's a struggle. Nelson Mandela said, it's a long walk to freedom. I've been walking for a long time and I'm not tired yet. It's a long walk to freedom. And we gotta know that the struggle continues. And we thank you for being here. And I thank Faith for reading today.
It's about that.
Hello, everyone. Jacques Williams here, your host of City Views, encouraging you to check out our next episode. I'm so excited about it because we're going to be talking to the future of T-Town. Tyler Campanelli and Madej Farrar are two interesting gentlemen who I think you would want to get to know. Madej, something you said that I thought was interesting in terms of how this is giving you a new perspective on events in the world. How how do you consider that to be an important component in developing as an artist?
Uh, it's very important to me. Like, I just want like the world to see my vision as I am right now. Like making this video, like just making sure that people know what's happening in the world with my vision, my own vision. That's all I'm trying to do. Since I was young, I always want to be on TV, man. Like I grew up in like poor village in Bali, Indonesia. There's like 3 days flight from America, and then I came here as eighth. Oh no, what was fifth grade with no English at all. And then I got to stay back because of the ESL, the English program. I got to stay back 1 year, and then move on to fifth grade. From there on, this is one like since I live in America, why might as well making the American dream. That's what I'm
Now,
trying.
Tyler, I'm interested in your perspective on how you view Medea's story in today's environment, in which there's this cross current of views in terms of how this great melting pot is supposed to operate.
I think it's very important how he what's the word? How he kind of plays into it, because I think a lot of how Mate says that he wants to kind of get like the news of the world and just everything. I think it's big that he has a story like that, because it's hard. I feel like a lot of people's problems today when it comes to just like very social views is just raised how they're raised to see things. And I think they don't see what it's like to live like that, to grow up in like a poor area, to come to a new country with no knowledge of that language. I think having that mindset really helps like a news creator to kind of open their views.
The artistic future of the Torrington community is bright, with young upstarts like this coming to the fold. So you want to make sure that you check that out on our YouTube channel at cityviews-ct, or go to our website at cityviews-ct.com. Hello everyone, Jacques Williams here, your host for City Views. Welcome you to another segment of What's Cooking with 65th State District Rep Michelle Cook. We want to thank the sponsor of City Views, Toth Insurance Agency, located at 1151 East Main Street. Better protection, better value. So, Michelle, a lot's going on.
There is a lot going on, that is for sure. We are nationwide. We are in turmoil. We are on the heels of an inauguration. We are praying for some type of smooth transition of power. But we also know that there are threats on every state capital across the United States. So, it's to the point where it has disrupted business in various states. And I think that we need to really recognize what is going on in our country. And with that, I don't want to be doom and gloomy. I am sitting here at my legislative office building office. We were called into session this week, today actually, to do nominations for judges who expire, their terms expire. And we were supposed to be in here next week. And due to the safety of everybody, they made us come in early to ensure that we were safe and protected. We've had calls with our state capitol police. We've been briefed on protocols and protection procedures and so forth and so on. And, these are times that I've never experienced in my tenure. And I'm very sad that we have to have these conversations. I'm sad that it is making people afraid. But at the same time, I'm extremely saddened at the turmoil that our country is in. And as I have said to you, since we've been doing this, kindness, respect, dignity, agree to disagree, but do it respectfully. I'm really hoping that for our viewers, for our community, for our state, and for our country, that we can figure out a better way to get somebody's point across than what we've seen last week at the Capitol. Nobody should lose a life because of a disagreement. That breaks my heart, and there's just no words for that. But, at that point, I think that we're just going to have to watch what happens and be very cognizant of our surroundings. On a note of enlightenment, my understanding is that our revenue projections will be looking really good. And so tomorrow, that would be January 15th. Tomorrow, our revenue projections, I believe, will be coming out. We've heard good things. I'm really hoping that those good things continue, because as we know, as COVID has really devastated a lot of things, we need some brightness to come out of that. Our vaccinations are rolling out in a great manner. All of our nursing homes, staff and residents who are wanting to be vaccinated and have been vaccinated, we are leading the charge in that regard across the country. And from there, we will roll into phase 1B. And then according to that, we'll go to phase 1C. So now if anybody 75 years and older would like the vaccination, please reach out. There's a website. Email me. I don't have the website in front of me. You could reach out to our local area health department and register to get an appointment to get that vaccination. I talked to our area health department last night. They have ensured that they have not had to throw away or discard any dose of any vaccination. Once they open the vial, they need to use all of it within a certain time, or they have to discard it. And they've been very diligent and not had to discard any of those vaccinations. And I'm extremely proud of the work that they are doing. And I'm appreciative of the partnerships that we've had with CVS and Walgreens to ensure that our nursing homes and so forth are being vaccinated in a timely manner as well. So right now, those are the things that we have. I would really love to see our kids back in school full time. I think that they're really feeling the burden of being home. And not only are they, but so are their parents. And I know that it's been difficult on all fronts, educators, parents, and children alike. And I would love us to see us come together and figure out a way to get kids back in school in a manner of which they feel safe and the educators feel safe, because we cannot continue to let our children lose the educational years that we are seeing happen. So for me, that's where I'm at. That's what's cooking. What do you got?
I ain't got that much, girl, I tell you. But I will tell you this, though. There's a lot of people out here that are really praying for your safety, as well as all of our representatives. And I think that the community understands that this type of I'm not sure even there's a word for this, but there has to be a better way that we can amp down the political rhetoric. And hopefully the new administration will bring an added focus on those issues that are affecting everyday Americans, so that we don't get caught up in any of these side issues or distractions that really, at the end of the day, don't do anything to solve the problems that families are facing and that they're discussing at their kitchen tables. So we hope the best for you, and we know that our contingency here in the Northwest corner, they're working together, and they're focused on bipartisan solutions to solving by solving the problems that we're having with bipartisanship. So I think that bodes well for the citizens here in the Northwest corner. Now, I am hearing, though, that Charlotte Hungerford Hospital will be opening up a vaccination center on January 28th.
Correct.
Can you update us on that information?
So that is true. I have an email in my inbox, of which I have not even seen my inbox today, to let me know what is going on. I will post all of that information on my Facebook page as well. And I know that Charlotte Hungerford has been instrumental in trying to ensure everyone's safety by doing the drive-through testing and so forth. And now they will be doing vaccinations as well. I would recommend everybody to ensure that they go straight to the Charlotte Hungerford website to get the factual, up-to-date, and current information, because you know as well as I know, as soon as you and I put it out there, something might change. But I want to thank all of the folks there that have been doing the incredible work and that are continuing to do the incredible work to keep our communities safe as well.
Now, people who I think are at the required age limit can go and receive their vaccinations in Wethersfield, Norwich, Shelton, and Hartford. Am I correct in that?
Yes. And then there's also the ability, depending on what your employer or employee is.
Yes.
So like somebody saying, like Walgreens and CVS were doing the vaccinations for the nursing homes. So there are other opportunities for vaccinations accordingly. But you will see that those vaccination opportunities, you can, like I said, you want to log into that website. And as we're talking, I'm going to try to find that website for us. Log into that website and you can register to get a vaccination. And if you're willing to travel, there's not one in your area, you can go get a vaccination at any other area as long as you meet those criteria. I think that that's vitally important, and the way that they're doing it is key to getting people vaccinated. I have obviously people that are in the different, tiers. Some might not be able to get their vaccination when it is time for them to get it. So they want to be able to pass those vaccinations along to as many people as possible as they can while they can. And then Johnson & Johnson has a vaccination that hopefully is rolling out soon as well. And instead of the Moderna and the Pfizer one where they are 2 vaccinations, the Johnson & Johnson one will be a single dose vaccination. That is not yet ready to go, but we are working on it.
I heard too that Johnson & Johnson vaccination doesn't have to be refrigerated. Is that true?
I think it's at normal refrigeration storage. It's not at the sub temperature that the first one needs to be. Although, like the Moderna one doesn't have to be kept as frigid as the Pfizer one. So I think that things are going along accordingly.
Fantastic. Now, how many vaccinations is the state of Connecticut going to be obligated to bring in?
I think obligation is not the right word, my friend. I think having the opportunity to have as many vaccinations as possible. I mean, the goal is right now, we were supposed to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 700,000 vaccinations by the middle of January. I don't have a current up-to-date number. Like I said, I was on the phone with public health last night, our area public health, and I left my numbers on my table. They're in a book. But he had given me the specifics as to where we were with those numbers. And we're in a very, very good place. So between what the Walgreens and the CVS has done for our nursing homes, and then our first responders, doctors, medical professionals and the like, there were well over 15. Yeah, I don't want to quote the wrong number, so I'm not going to give it to you. But they were in a very, very good place for numbers. The vaccine portal is portals.ct.gov. And then you can go from there. That is literally all things COVID related for the state of Connecticut, and move through there accordingly.
So, what are your impressions on the governor's State of the State speech?
I think that unlike any other time, we have to be optimistic. You have to be uplifting. We really need to move in a manner of positiveness. I think that things are still very unsettled and uncertain. I welcome his remarks. I'm anxiously listening to or waiting to hear his State of the State, if you will, that will come out the second week of February. That's really the speech that we need to pay attention to.
So, in that speech that's going to be given in a few weeks, what do you think will be the major items that he will address in that?
So obviously fiscal components and getting people back to work is a priority. The governor has been very vocal about ensuring that all of our kids are in school. So I'm wondering, and I'm suspecting that we hear a little bit more on that. Obviously, with the vaccination rollouts, we will hear more on that and how we are and how those tiers are going, and getting an update on where we are as a fiscal component. What does our state look like fiscally? How are our revenues looking? How are our expenditures looking? And what do we need to do? We were in a good place with the rainy day fund. So the revenues will determine whether or not that rainy day fund is going to need to be tapped into, or are we going to be in a good place, which we're hoping that we're in a good place. I think at the bottom line, we need to figure out a way to continue to get our state back to whatever normal might look like in that safe and healthy manner. And we know that the small businesses have really felt the crunch of that. Again, the only thing I believe that is not opened across the state are bars. And as we've spoken, for obvious reasons, we know why those have not opened up. I really don't know where else he might go in that regard. I do believe it's going to be fiscal. It's going to be business related. It's going to be, educational related, and then any benefits that we might need to bring back to the state. And then obviously get an update on the federal funding coming down and where we are in that regard as well. And then from there, obviously we have a few weeks. And so who knows what's going to happen. I suspect that he will address the incoming president-elect and the transition of power and where the state of Connecticut has fits in the new administration's plans. Obviously, we've had some Connecticut residents that have taken positions in the cabinet and have influence in that. So I think that that's extremely important too. I'm not sure if we hear about that from the governor, but those are all those are impressive things to be bragging about as a Connecticut resident.
So Michelle, in the effort to balance the budget and to raise funds, what do you think about the gas tax that's considering to being implemented?
I hate the gas tax. I think that it is an unsustainable fund.
Hold on. No, you're a Democrat. You're not supposed to hate that.
That's all right. I find myself pretty moderate in the big scheme of things. So, realistically, we need to look at the whole conversation. We know that the transportation fund needs help. We know that our infrastructure, there was a push for tolls, that bad word tolls. There was a push for tolls. The governor has said that he's not going to he's not going to go back and try to readdress that conversation. But we do need to figure out a way to sustain our infrastructure and our transportation fund. With more electric cars, obviously there's going to be less revenue from gas. So I think there needs to be a holistic look at how we fund that transportation fund. And what does that mean? So for me, I'm not a big fan of the gas tax. And I think that it's just more and more and more. And there's got to be a better way to do it. And I'm not saying I have that solution to that issue. I don't know what happens moving forward. Obviously, we are literally in the first week of our legislative session. And so all of the proposed legislation has not even been proposed yet. So, and then things will have to happen from there. So I think as we move forward, we'll hear different ideas and different suggestions and kind of work together. And I'm really hoping that it's bipartisan work that we can get done, because that is how we are the best of who we are. 95% of the things that we do here at the State House are bipartisan, and traditionally 5% are not. And so I'm hoping that we can raise that bar this year.
As far as revenue raising is concerned, Michelle, what are your thoughts on the legalization of marijuana in the state of Connecticut?
Yeah, I don't like it. I really and truly struggle with the legalization of marijuana. I know that there's a couple of other states that have done it. I know that they're having some issues from it. And I don't believe that we should legislate anything, legalize anything that just to gain it if it's an illegal substance. And if the feds do not recognize it as a non-illegal substance, we're going to continue to have problems as people cross the borders and transport through, air, train, and the like. So I think this really needs to be a federal conversation as opposed to a state by state conversation. At the same time, then I put my other hat on and I say, we have alcohol that does sometimes far more damage to people than marijuana does, which is a natural substance. And so you can see where I'm at, like doing this. My one side is truly adamant that we don't do it, but then my other side understands that we have legalized alcohol for 21 and older, and it does significant damage to our bodies. And the components to its addictiveness are far greater from what I have learned than to the marijuana conversation. So as of this point, I'm still a hard no, but I am having conversations to figure out truly where we need to go. And at the end of the day, if you talk to our folks that are out there doing God's work and trying to help those people in recovery and really make strides in addiction, they will tell you that this might not be the best way to go either. And then we also have to look at our police officers and first responders. And until we can get a manner of testing on the spot to ensure somebody's not driving under the influence, I also don't know if that's the best way to go either. So I think that there's a lot of things that need to be rectified before I have that conversation as to I'm maybe thinking about going another way.
Thanks a lot. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of City Views. Don't forget to check us out on our YouTube channel and subscribe at cityviews-ct or go to our website at cityviews-ct.com. Stay tuned and check out more coming at you right here from City Views.
We also provide internet access, free Wi-Fi. I can tell you it's tax season now, so my girls are going nuts out there trying to help people print tax forms and get the right tax forms. We're not accountants. We cannot do your taxes for you, much to their dismay, but we'll help you get the forms. We'll direct you where to go. So it's all of those things tied in that help us contribute, hopefully, to a stronger community in the long run.
Talk a little bit too, Jessica, about when you're talking about collaborations and whatnot, about the Torrington Library and its historical place in the community and the programs and activities that you do around that.
So the library has been in town. It was formed in 1864, so we've been here over 150 years. We've been in our current home. It's, the big marble gorgeous building on Descotten Place since 1901. So we have some roots here. We've seen a lot, and we've been here for quite some time. And what I thought was really interesting, we started to look back at our history. And we have these wonderful old ledgers back to 1864 when the library was formed. And they have a ton of Post-it notes in them. So when was this pipe replaced? When was that done? When was this done? But one thing that we found recently was a mention about the 1918 flu pandemic and how the library was affected during what was really the first pandemic of our time as a library organization. And they did exactly what we're doing now. They closed their doors for a little bit, made sure everything was safe, and opened back up. And that was 100 years ago. So we used the phrase, we got you through the first pandemic, we'll get you through this one too. And it was really true.
It's going to be an interesting conversation, and we want to make sure that you're able to check it out. You can go to our YouTube page at cityviews-ct or check it out on our website at cityviews-ct.com. City Views is brought to you by our sponsor, Toth Insurance Agency, located at 1151 East Main Street. Better protection, better value.
City Views. City Views. City Views. City Views.
What's happening in your city?
City Views. City Views. City Views. City Views.
You got love for your city?
City Views. City Views. City Views. City Views.
What's happening in your city?
City Views. City Views. City Views. City Views.
You got love for your city?
City Views. City Views.